Good morning. Welcome to another live feed on Rashad's YouTube channel. Let's get to the Word of God, Sermon on the Mount, Treasure in Heaven, chapter 55. This is the great teachings of Jesus Christ. Been in this book for a long period of time, I'm still continue to stay on it as long as I can. This is a great book by R.T. Kendall. This is about the teachings of Jesus Christ. Then we'll get to the second chapter of inside the rivalry between the 70s Raiders and Steelers. Darth Raider and the Mad Bum. We're going to start with the Word of God first. Matthew chapter 6, verse 18 to 21 says, "Do not store up yourselves treasures on earth, which moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be." There your heart will be also. All right, so let's get into it. Now, Jesus is slightly changing the subject, although not departing from the concept of reward in heaven. In so doing, he brings us back to the underlying theme of the Sermon on the Mount, the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is the realm of the ungrieved spirit. This means that the Holy Spirit is utterly himself in us without being quenched, thwarted, or grieved. The extent to which we inherit the kingdom will be the degree to which we are detached from the things of the earth. The degree to which we build our treasure in heaven on the other side will be the degree to which we inherit the kingdom. Matthew chapter 6, verse 19 to 21 serves as a reminder that all Christians need again and again. We are going to heaven. In the words of the old spiritual, this world is not my home. I'm just a passing through. As for the disciples of Jesus, there was not a question whether they would be there one day. As John Stott put it, Jesus addressing the disciples who have already received the salvation of God. The same is true of the whole of the New Testament. All of the epistles are addressed to Christians. For example, I write to you, dear children, because your sins have been forgiven on account of his name. The issue then is not whether they are saved, but whether they will enjoy that realm of the ungrieved spirit here below, where they will receive a reward in heaven above. The word Jesus used was, "Great is your reward in heaven." But he now uses a different word, treasures. Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. So behind this teaching is a concept called scroll of remembrance. And then those who feared the Lord talked with each other, and the Lord listened and heard. A scroll of remembrance was written in his presence concerning those who fear the Lord and honor his name. This means that nothing we do though is overlooked or forgotten, except our sins that have been washed away by the blood of Jesus Christ. So what is remember, Paul said? Not that I am looking for a gift, but I am looking for what may be credited to your account. This was a reference to the judgment seat of Christ, which will unveil what has been credited in our account. It's like having two bank accounts. One below, like ours in First Tennessee Bank, and one above, call it the Bank of Heaven. Some live for what they possess below, as in the parable of the rich fool. He said, "I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. I'll say to myself, you have plenty of good things laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself?" This is how it will be with anyone who stores up things for himself, but is not rich toward God. Such a person has no treasure in heaven. In the word, some live for what they possess below. Some live for what they put on deposit in the bank of heaven. The issue is what is more important to you. For where your treasure is, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Jesus is interested in the heart. Some people's hearts are set on earthly things. They destroy, their destiny is destruction. Their God is their stomach, and their goy is their saying. Their minds on the earthly things. But in contrast, Paul said, our citizenship is in heaven. Philippians chapter 3, verse 19 and 20 talks about that. Let's get into earthly treasures. We're going to eternal treasures and existing treasures. It's going to be a good one, quick one. To get to the Raiders and Steelers book. Let's get into it. Earthly treasures. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal, said Jesus. There are four descriptions that fit what Jesus means by treasures on earth. First, possessions. For we brought nothing into the world, we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. People who want to get rich fall into temptation and are trapped into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. It's coming from 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 7 to 10. When it comes to property, nothing can last. Whether furniture, your computer, the television. Moth eats into foes. The inclination of wealth is a temptation. But what will it mean when it is time to die? Quincy R.T. Kennedy said that his old pastor told a story about a wealthy dying man who requested all of his gold possessions be brought to his bed. He brought all his gold nuggets, gold bracelets, and gold watches. He held all he could in his hands. But when he died, they all fell to the floor. Second, treasures on earth refer to power. Power is only earthly treasure. No power that R.T. Kennedy means is control. This includes control over wealth, control over people's opinions, power to influence or manipulating others' future. Two of the most powerful men in the world, Bill Gates and Rupert Murdoch. Bill Gates is the world's wealthiest man. He has probably earned millions literally since. Comes to R.T. Kennedy, trying to be sarcastic, but we're going to write his chapter. He said, do not know he has been conscientious in giving money away to needed causes throughout the world. Now, Rupert Murdoch owns the London Times, other major newspapers, but he influences not only the public, but prime ministers and presidents. R.T. Kim said, I don't know what God means to these men. Like R.T. Kim says, he knows that there will come a day when all of us who live for this life only will be told, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Third, pleasure. Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, love of the Father is not in you, not in him. For everything in the world, the cravings of sinful man, lust of the eyes, and the boasting of what he has and does. Comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world in its desires pass away, but the man who does the will of God lives forever. Such worldly pleasure could be in a sexual gratification outside of marriage, the wrong kind of entertainment, or accessing what goes into the body. This becomes idolatry, and the last word in 1 John reads, Dear children, keep yourselves from idols. The fourth thing is praise. This includes living for the approval of other people, those who know you well and those who you hardly know. When a bit of prestige means a little bit too much to you, beware. Living for the praise of people rather than the praise of God will abort the process toward inheritance in the kingdom of heaven. In Jesus' day, things were different. Houses were made of mudstone, and people could dig beneath them. That is the way thieves will break in and steal. See, the Greek literally reads, where thieves dig under. In these days, there were no banks or insurance policies. People could lose everything at once. But it can still happen, as I've seen in recent years. Wealthy people sometimes lose everything overnight. People lose their jobs, which have been so secure. We are learning that nothing is certain. No job is secure. No possessions are guaranteed to be yours tomorrow. As for those who are addicted to the approval of people opinions change overnight. The people you are trying to impress today may mean little or nothing to you tomorrow. Jesus is calling for you and me to have a spiritual detachment from earthly treasure, and is giving us pragmatic advice. Summed up, all things here below are temporary. All these material things that mean so much to us will come to nothing, not to mention the sorrow we will feel at the judgment seat of Christ after we put our eggs in one basket, earthly treasure. Now let's get into the eternal treasures. Eternal treasures, Jesus makes this profound personal statement. Store up for your treasures, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. You'll be doing it for yourself. You won't be able to share in others' reward. Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out. Going to Matthew chapter 25, verse 8. But this was impossible. We may be able to share our goods and possessions with our friends and loved ones here below, but when it comes to eternal treasure, each one will receive what is due for the things done while in the body. Whether good or bad. Paul said it again. Each of us will give an account of himself to God. Romans chapter 14, verse 12 talks about that. There's an underlying assumption in the gospel which needs to be applied and brought home to every man and woman. That is, each person is responsible for his or her own destiny, whether he or she spends eternity in heaven or in hell. Quote, what shall profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? Each Christian is responsible for the quality of his or her reward. You can come cause one to lose his or her reward, according to 2 John chapter 8, but you cannot share in another's reward. However, teach in a manner that will lead you to reward. I myself want to reward in heaven, according to R.C. Kendall, but Paul did. You will discover that then whether I have been a true man of God, I will also learn about you. Nothing will give me joy than to think my teaching, according to R.C. Kendall, has led someone to receive a reward in heaven because they took seriously what R.C. Kendall writes and preach. Laying up treasures in heaven eternally is possible for you and me at the moment, but on certain conditions. If you haven't begun already, you won't always be able to do this. Again, now there are precious moments, precious days. Jonathan Edwards once made a New Year's resolution to live each day as if it would be his last. What if all of us did that? What you do on the earth in this regard cannot be done in heaven. There will be no praying in heaven. There will be no soul winning in heaven. There will be no need for obedience in heaven. There will be no tithing in heaven. No need for faith in heaven. No dignifying the trial in heaven. No total forgiveness in heaven. No leaving God to vindicate in heaven. The old cliche is worth repeating here. Only one life will soon pass. Only what's done for Christ will last. You cannot lose your salvation between now and the judgment seat of Christ. Comforting thought. God saves us forever. But you can lose your reward between now and the judgment seat of Christ. You can start out building up treasure in heaven and then end up becoming enamored with the world, like Demas did, 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 10, and lose that treasure. Existing treasure. According to Jesus, this treasure exists now. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. It means that where your treasure is now, as we will see in more detail in the next chapter, the treasure is either above or below. That will also reveal where your heart is. Your heart is the seat of personality, seat of emotions. It is the real you, what you truly think and feel. You either have a heart set on earthly treasures that you are still counting on, or treasures in heaven. If your treasure is in heaven, then your heart will motivate you to send what you treasure ahead of you. You build on earthly treasure by loving the world and the things of the world, leaving God out. You build up treasures in heaven, but walking in the light God gives you. In 1 John chapter 4, verse 7. But however, Jesus is mainly talking about money and the love of money in this section of the Sermon on the Mount. When you give to God is what you put to your account in the bank of heaven. Treasure in heaven, what you give to God is sent on to heaven in advance of your arrival there. What you give to God is deposited into the bank of heaven. All we do is governed by the location of our treasure. For where our treasure is, there will our heart be also. Jesus implies that those who do not take his advice are fools. You fool. God will say to the person whose treasure is not in heaven, don't be a fool, be wise. Seek first the kingdom of God. Guarantee it, you will never be sorry. All right, so tomorrow I'll be in chapter 56, the heart of the matter. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Be from Matthew chapter 6, verse 21. All right, so that's it. Let's get to this Steelers Raiders book. Darth Raider and the Mad Bomber. Chapter 2. The Dallas Cowboys of the 1970s were America's team. The Oakland Raiders were America's most wanted. The Cowboys were clean-cut, corporate-like in comportment, appearance, computer complex in their game strategies. The Raiders were renegades, rebels, but with a cause. Like the baseball counterparts in Oakland, Charlie Finley's famed mustache gang, the Raiders looked as A's star Gene Tennis set up his squad like a biker gang on a 3-day bender. The face of the Cowboys franchise was head coach Tom Landry, whose calm, controlled demeanor was as much the iconic sideline picture game days and a West fedora, bright blue blazer, and crisp white shirt and patterned necktie. Meanwhile, Raiders coach John Madden wore blousy shirts unbuttoned at the neck. Below that, officials. Hey, throw the blank Although the blank flag, Madden was described by one observer as resembling as an unmade waterbed. Now, quarterback Roger Staubach was called Captain America. The bright blue star Dallas wore on his helmet had been part of the original Captain America's costume. Raiders quarterback Kenny Stabler, like a sharp contrast, was nicknamed the Snake. The Snake. His ferocious teammates had monikers as Big Ben, Assassin, Doctor Death. It was all perfectly fitting for a squad with swashbuckling logo, bore the visions of a pirate. His head covered by a silvery Raiders helmet, his right eye covered by a black patch, and a pair of crossed swords. The Rays logo was reportedly a rendition of Randolph Scott, a square-jawed actor who was an action hero, leading man in movies, and had a significant role in the pirate movie Captain Kidd. They were the original Darth Raiders. And the art levels of Oakland took their cue from their Emperor Al Davis. If the Cowboys were known for their blue stars, the Raiders could have been known for the Death Star, made famous in the 70s by the George Lucas in Star Wars. Gonzo journalist Hunter S. Thompson took it a step further, stating that Al Davis made Darth Vader look like a wimp. Davis declared his off-parodied Brooklyn accent that is Raiders would rather be feared than respected. And the man who spent his adult life in football as a scout, as an assistant coach, head coach, general manager, owner, created coaching in Oakland unlike any other in pro football history. From the opening kickoff to the final gun, Oakland's opponents were going to get hit. Stated George Atkinson, an old pro safety for the Raiders from 1968 to 1977. They were going to get hit hard, and they were going to get hit often. The Raiders wanted to leave opponents with the conviction that football isn't a contact sport, it's a collision sport, as Vince Lombardi often stated. That's what Oakland did, Atkinson said. The Raiders created collisions. Atkinson's partner at safety was Jack Statham, also known as the Assassin, a huge hitter for Woody Hayes' Ohio State Buckeye squad that won a national championship in 1968. Fell just shy of national titles next 9 against 70. Tatum found a way to his liking when Davis drafted him in 1971. It was appealing to Tatum that once he became a Raider, he was going to go out on the field and destroy opponents. Oakland was going to hit opponents and intimidate them, said Tatum, who liked to believe that his best hits were an felonious assault. So Oakland linebacker Phil Piano said he and his mates hit as hard as they could because that was the Raider way. The Raider way was established in the late 1960s when they began winning and league division championships in the American Football League. The more Oakland won, the more prominent and feared its image became. Will Piano said some teams would lie down and let the Raiders beat them. Opponents were afraid of the image. The Silver and Blacks bullying led to a mystique that left the rest of the league wary. Like those who faced the Philadelphia Flyers, brutally physical, broad street bullies teams in the 70s, opponents of the Silver and Black knew what awaited them on game day. Kansas City head coach Hank Stram hated seeing those silver and black uniforms on game days in the Oakland Coliseum. Miami Dolphins wide receiver Nat Moore said players were aware of the Raiders' mystique and knew going into games that they were going to get hit hard. Moore said it was simple. Were you going to get hit fairly, or was it going to be a cheap shot? New England Patriots star tight end Russ Francis thought some of the Raiders were outstanding athletes, but that other members of Oakland's outfit weren't very good. The latter, Francis said, were intimidating types who tried to hurt people. Joe Namath believed opponents knew they were playing a rough football team in the Raiders. New York Jets Hall of Fame quarterback adopted his half-cage face mask, notable in the era of single and double bar looks. Late in 1967, as his cheekbone was snatched by the clubbing fist of 6'5", 270-pound Raiders lineman like Ike Blatchler. Some of the Raiders' Namath asserted kick and bit and hit you in the back of the helmet. The proof he insisted was the game films. It was extinct in his appearance as his Raiders were in their play. He wore his hair slicked back and mirrored his team's colors by wearing black suits with silver ties. In his later years, black or satin running suits. His offense was styled in civil fashion. The hooker, John Matuzak was cut by the Washington Redskins and signed by the Raiders in 1976. An assistant led him into Al's office. What the self-styled tools saw was quintessential Raider. Everything in Davis' domain was silver and black. Black walls, black couch, black telephone, silver drapes, silver carpet, silver chair, seated behind a black desk was Davis. Looked tattoos as if he had just stepped out of the 50s, hair slicked back in the pompadour, ducktail creeping down his neck. Davis maintained that the fire that burns rises in the Raiders organization's will to win. His most oft-repeated creed, just win, baby, commits excellence. Reflected beliefs that Davis grew up with. Bud Adams, the original owner of Houston Oilers, one of the 8 founding members of the AFL Foods Club, said Davis was a football man whose entire life revolved around the sport he loved. He worked his way through the ranks and had knowledge of all phases of the game. That experience aided him as an owner. Along with the Bengals' Paul Brown, Davis was the only other owner in the NFL in the 70s who had been a pro head coach. Because of all that experience, Al did things other NFL owners didn't dream of doing. He studied film, scouted players, constantly worked their phones in such search of trades. Davis made it a point to always be at the Raiders' full contact practices on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and some weeks still practice before the game. He kept a low profile on the pro practice field, standing alone on the distant sideline or beneath a goalpost. But his players' coaches knew he was there. Davis had a presence. He had something else, a deep love for his team. He made his plays by knowing the name of every one of them, even during training camp. And there were dozens of rookies and free agents trying to make the team. On some NFL teams, players might see their owner 3 or 4 times the entire season because their roots are in their other businesses. They are rely on others when faced with football decisions. Chuzak said some owners didn't know red greens from red wine. They thought bronchonegacy was some kind of tropical disease. Not so with Davis. Al's greatest love besides his wife, Carol, and their family was Raiders. Adams believed Davis differed from other owners because of his background. Al was an AFL guy who helped push the Rivalry League forward. Like Pittsburgh patriarch Albert Rooney Sr., Davis is one of the most important figures in pro football history. He would be a pivotal figure in hastening the historic merger between the upstart AFL and the established NFL. Like his beloved AFL, Davis was a rebel with a cause, renegade coach, commissioner, owner who bucked NFL authority for more than 3 decades. He is the only executive in pro football history to be assistant coach, head coach, commissioner, general manager, and owner. Like Rooney, Davis did not prefer being in the background. Al was out in front, in your face type A personality. When a reporter asked young Davis how he would adjust to California's laid back lifestyle, he, the former Brooklyn street kid, bristled, adjust. You don't adjust, you dominate. Davis dominated because for him, football was not just a sport, not just his friends, but his life. The tough minded coach and owner of the Oakland Raiders transformed a failing franchise and turned it into one of the most iconic in all of sports. When you think of Al Davis, he gave his whole life to football. He's done nothing else. Management will tell Davis, you got to do something. But Davis never hunted, fished, or played golf. Al's job, his profession, his free time, man said, was football. Born on July 4th, 1979, in Brockton, Massachusetts, to Rose Kirchenbaum and Davis and Louis Davis, Al was an Independence Day baby whose life would come to reflect the fiery passion and free thinking that marked the origins of his holiday birthday. His father found employment in several fields, garment manufacturing among them. Louis, Rose, and Al's sons Al and older brother Jerry, who was born in 1925, who rented 6-floor walk-up of Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York, in 1934. So Al's father supported him in anything he did as long as he didn't back down from confrontation. One of Al's heroes was fellow Brockton native Rocky Marciano. Prior to big fights, the Rock would refrain from slaving for a few days in order to look scruffy and foreboding. Davis would do the same thing years later when the Raiders had a big game. Childhood friends of Al thought he was more of a talker than a fighter. He was drawn to basketball and gained a place for hard play. Davis was a backup at Erasmus Hall High School, a public school located on Flatbush Avenue. The school proved to be a spawning ground for people who would become famous in sport and entertainment, like NFL quarterback Hall of Fame quarterback Sid Lubman of the Chicago Bears preceded Al at Erasmus. His lifelong hitter Davis Barbara Streisand was a graduate of Erasmus Hall. While Davis didn't gain much playing time, he did study the coaching techniques of Al Baden, a man whom Davis would credit for teaching him much about coaching. Davis graduated from Erasmus in 1947, enrolled at Wittenberg College in Springfield, Ohio. Spent a semester there, focused on baseball, and transferred to Syracuse University. Davis tried out for numerous sports, but was relegated to backup status on the junior varsity baseball team. He transferred to Hartwick College in Oneonta, New York, before soon returned to Syracuse. Failing to make the varsity basketball team, Davis threw himself into studying football strategy. He hung around the team's practices, taking notes so often that he was asked to leave by suspicious coaching staff. Until Davis attended classes in football strategy, courses taught by coaches and normally taken by players only. He earned a degree in English and developed deep interest in literature, jazz, military, political history. The latter became a lifelong fascination, so much so that in the later years ahead, after taking over the Oakland organization, every Raiders itinerary would contain the words, "We go to war." 6 decades in football, Davis began in 1950. He graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in English and was named line coach at Adelphi College in New York. He had been pursuing both a master's degree and position as an assistant coach in football in order to jumpstart his career. While pursuing the job, Al would produce himself as Davis from Syracuse. Some thought that Davis' deception George Davis was a star halfback for the for the Orange Man, intentional. Al was turned down at Hofstra, initially at Adelphi, where he sought out Adelphi's president and was hired as freshman football coach. Davis' student referral ended when he earned his master's degree in 1952. He was sent to the U.S. Army. He was assigned head coach at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Military teams at the time were stocked with college stars. Davis helped build a national power service team. Yet his methods for securing former college and pro players drafted into the military raised eyebrows and suspicious and in equal amounts and very nearly led to a congressional investigation. In 1953, Davis coached Fort Belvoir to an 8-2-1 record and just missed earning a berth in the Poinsettia Bowl following a season-ending loss to Quantico Marine Base. During his time in the Army, Davis sold salary information on his players to NFL teams. Al at the time was the Los Angeles Rams public relations specialist Pete Rozelle. Since Rozelle would not pay for information, Davis didn't provide him any spotting reports. Their personal feud would continue for the next several decades, resulting in several lawsuits. Most of Davis' team was sent to Korea. Al remained at Fort Belvoir until he was discharged in 1954. The 24-year-old Davis gained his first pro football job, serving as a scout for Baltimore head coach Reeve Eubank. The next 2 years saw him serving as line chief recruiter at the Citadel from 1957 1969. 1959, Davis joined Don Clark's staff as line coach at the University of Southern California. Persuaded Clark to implement a blocking scheme described by a former Trojan player as a hit him and hit him again double block. Davis credited with helping turn around the Trojans' USC going 8-2 in 1959. Davis returned to pro football in 1960, not with the NFL. Lamar Hunt and several other owners who would become known as the Foolish Club had started the American Football League. Davis was hired by new Los Angeles Chargers head coach Sid Gilman as an assistant coach. The offensive line that would eventually feature Tobin Rote and John Hader at quarterback, Paul Lowe and Keith Lincoln in the backfield, Lance Allworth at wide receiver, Bill Mix at tackle. Chargers of Brian quick striking attack symbolized the exciting, wide open style of the fledgling AFL. Stopwatch never lies. Speed kills, but absolute speed kills absolutely. Having coached the Chargers defense was Chuck Noll, former Cleveland Browns lineman under legendary Paul Brown. Noll, who would build the Steelers' wide to rival Davis' Raiders for AFC supremacy in the 70s, had been a messenger guard for Otto Graham and block for Jim Brown. Under Gilman, Noll bossed a Charger front that featured stars in Earl Faison and Ernie Big Cat Ladd. Davis was instrumental in the Chargers winning 2 Western Division championships in their first 3 years, playing for the AFL title in 1916 began in 1961. Gilman knew his cocky young assistant was headed for bigger things. There isn't a doubt in Al Davis' mind that right now he's the smartest guy in the game. He isn't, but he will be soon, pretty soon. In January 1963, Davis was named head coach of the Oakland Raiders. The Raiders had gone 1-13 in 1962, won a combined 3 games in the 2 seasons prior to Davis's taking over. Oakland played its home games in Frank Yoel Field, a high school-sized complex named after the local Undertaker. At age 33, Davis was the youngest man in pro football at the time to be combined the demanding dual position of head coach and general manager. He had 14 years of coaching experience. Was called by Sports Illustrated a young coaching genius. Scholastic's Coach magazine said Davis owned the most inventive mind in the country. San Francisco coaching legend Bill Walsh, who brought Gilsman's concept and popularized them as the famed West Coast offense. The 49ers used to receive Noah Stills as the NFL's dominant dynasty, called Davis a truly great coach, one of the greatest coaches he had ever observed. Had Al chosen to remain in coaching, Walsh stated he will be considered one of the greatest coaches of all time. In '63, Davis coached the Braves to the greatest turnaround in pro football history. Oakland is the only team in pro football to improve its record by 9 wins in one season while playing a 14-game schedule. The fire that burns brightest in the Braves organization is the will to win. The Braves noticed of their turnaround from the start. 2 touchdown dogs to the host Houston Oilers in the regular season opener. Oakland won 24-13. Davis and company returned to the West Coast the following week for their home opener blitz East Division contender Buffalo 35-17. 4 straight losses followed before the Raiders ripped off 8 straight wins to close their campaign. Oakland finished 10-4 and second in the West by 1 game to Gilman's Chargers, whom Oakland defeated twice during the regular season. The Raiders' historic turnaround led to Davis being named Pro Football Coach of the Year, and he made their record. Davis also remained the Raiders' image. As a boy in Brooklyn, Davis was fascinated by Red Blank's undefeated national champion Army squads that featured game-breaking stars in fullback Felix Doc Blanchard, Mr. Inside, and halfback Lynn Davis, Mr. Outside, or Al saw the Black Knights of the Hudson. As Blake's teams were known, charged the field in their black jerseys and fearing their opponents. He believed Army's uniforms made their players look larger than they were, thus made them appear more intimidating to opponents. Those memories were still fresh in Al's mind when he joined the Raiders. He changed Oakland's uniforms from black and gold, secondhand relics from the University of the Pacific, to a new silver and black scheme whose design resembled his beloved Black Knights of the Hudson. At the same time, he adopted the sartorial strength of Army's football teams. Davis built the Oakland Raiders offense to combine the power of the New York Yankees, Bronx Bombers, that had boasted Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, Bill Dickey, Yogi Berra, Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris, and the speed of the Brooklyn Dodgers, Boys of Summer squads featuring the Fleet, Jackie Robinson. It was Davis's dream to combine the elements of Yankee power and Dodger speed in one dynamic team. Taking over in Oakland, Davis turned his fantasy into reality. He modeled the Raiders along the lines of the champion Chargers team he had helped Gilman build. Oakland's offense will have the same kind of strong quarterback, swift receivers, large linemen who pass and block, pull out on sweeps and solid plays. The Raiders' defense will feature a front four that could pressure the quarterback and cornerbacks who cover receivers man to man. While pro football has always had a maximum take what the defense gives you, Davis installed a new model with the Raiders. We take what we want. Stretching the field vertically with the deep passing game of quarterbacks Tom Flores, Cotton Davidson, and Art Pyle, horizontally with the wide running game of Clem Daniels. The Raiders scored 363 points and averaged just under 26 points per game to rank second in the AFL. The vertical passing game Davis had learned from Gilman, his mentor, became a Raiders trademark. The wide open offensive scheme with its long bombs to a bevy of speed receivers was a signature strike of the Oakland offense. Davis didn't hesitate sending the swift Davis out of the backfield on deep patterns where he enjoyed mismatches with linebackers trying desperately to keep up. Oakland also employed an East formation that saw 2 receivers lined up on one side of the field, one in the slot position and the other wide. The formation forced mismatches as safeties sought to cover the speedy slot receivers all over the field. The Raiders became fearful in an ultra-aggressive defense, featuring a physically imposing front that punished quarterbacks and bumper run coverage by hard-hitting defensive backs. Davis changed defenses nearly every week, giving his linebackers the freedom to freelance and his secondary free reign to hunt down receivers. From the start, Davis infused the Raiders organization with his commitment to excellence. That wasn't just a mile. The phrase became as much a mindset within the organization as pride and poise and just win, baby. Despite the Raiders' struggles, banners proclaiming commitment to excellence will occupy prominent places in Oakland's home stadium on game days. I had a dream to build the finest organization in sports. skip around a little bit. Speaking talking about the Raiders coming up into what they will be, you know, especially Al Davis, what he brought to the table. Also, as far as civil rights, Davis was active in that. He refused to allow his Raiders teams to play in any city where black and white players had to stay in segregated hotels. He became the first NFL owner to hire an African American coach, second to hire a Latino head coach. Also, he fought for gender equality. He was the first NFL owner to hire a female chief executive in 1977 when Amy Trask was hired. Right here comes Darryl Lamonka. He was a very important part of Oakland Raiders' passing game, or the advancement of the passing game. Yeah, Darryl Lamonka, very important part. He went to Notre Dame. He arrived in South Bend, Indiana at a time he chose Notre Dame to go to, so he went to Notre Dame. So he was known as the Mad Bomber because of strong arm. He averaged 9 yards per attempt in the Bills' first title-winning season in '64. So Al Davis was able to get him away from Buffalo on March 14th, 1967. That was the first day of the college draft. So he had to study playbooks and game film. Monk had expected going into his first Raiders camp that he would need a month or so to adjust his new teammates' new system. So one critical change Lamonka had to make was the depth of his drop in the pocket. It had been to be deeper than in Buffalo, because Oakland's patterns broke later. Lamonka thought the patterns looked jumbled until he saw Raiders receivers running free after making their break. He had to discipline himself not to get itchy and step up in the pocket to throw. He learned to hold back until the last second before firing his pass. As veterans helped Michael learn the new system at first, he struck to basic plays, calling simpler patterns and throwing to the first receivers on virtually every play, even if it meant forcing a pass. Still, Lamonka was big enough and strong enough to turn even broken plays into positive games. One play, Lamonka forgot the call he had made in the huddle, but rather than audible to a new play, he took the center snap, kept the ball, and ran around in for an 18-yard gain. The Mad Bond's big arm was a perfect fit for the Raiders' big play mentality. He could throw a football 50 yards with a flick of his wrist. He excelled on deep out, corner, and post route patterns. Monka would tell reports he was thinking of the end zone all the time. His first season in Oakland saw Lamonka firebrand compound defense for 3,228 yards and league-leading 30 touchdowns. He was named AFL MVP. Gene Upshaw, a rookie as a Raider in '67, noticed how Lamonka would begin windmilling his arm in the locker room and the tunnel going down to the field. He couldn't wait to start throwing the ball. The Raiders soon discovered what Keating already knew. Lamonka had a great arm and threw beautiful passes. When Darryl threw deep passes in practice, it was like future fellow Oakland great Reggie Jackson hammering home runs in batting practice. The rest of the team just stopped and watched. Lamonka and Upshaw once recalled could really throw the bomb, and because he could, Darryl fitted perfectly with Davis' desire to build the ultimate deep passing game. Al believed in the vertical passing game. Lamonka remembered that's what we did. We threw the ball downfield. The Raiders would rather complete a 15-yard pass, even if it took 3 attempts, than 3 5-yarders. Through its use of formation and motion, Oakland's offense could dictate the opposing defenses. Lamarcus was the perfect quarterback for an era, but most teams use man coaches, even defensive backs to cover the Raiders. Speedy and savvy receivers all over the field. Oakland believed any of its receivers could get open in one-on-one coverage. The Raiders' pass patterns used all of their receivers all over the field. Ever since I began playing football, I've always believed that I was meant to lead. 1970 led the Raiders to their first division title and league championship. Davis dealing for the Monk had changed the fortunes of the Raiders organization. Oakland's ferocious defense, meanwhile, became known in 1967 as the 11 Angry Men, thanks to Larry Felser. Buffalo sports writer penned a line that read, "The Raiders played defense like 11 Angry Men." The Bills quarterback Jack Kemp was sacked 11 times in the 24-20 loss in Week 5. Felser's inspired prose was a play on the 1957 courtroom drama 12 Angry Men, starring Henry Fonda and Lee J. Cobb. Bob Valley, Raiders beat writer for the Oakland Tribune, liked the moniker so much he popularized it by using it in virtually every story he wrote for the rest of the season. They had 67 sacks. The Raiders won an AFL record 13 games in the 67 season, facing the Oilers' leading defense and ground gobbling offense in the AFL title game. On New Year's Eve, the Monka and the 11 Angry Men led Oakland to a 47 round berth in Super Bowl II. They were still to be facing the great Green Bay Packers and fellow New Yorker Vince Lombardi in a big game. Imagine the little Raiders on the same field as the Green Bay Packers. Riley for the Monka, Oakland's opponent in the Miami Orange Bowl had drafted Darvill 4 years earlier. The Monka threw for 2 touchdowns, but Oakland was overwhelmed, 33-14, Lombardi's final game as Packers head coach. Davis continued to add talent and via trades and drafts, and the Raiders from 1967 to 1969 became the first pro football coach to win. Became the first pro football team to win at least 12 games in 3 straight seasons. Oakland went 37-4-1 during that span, the best record of any team in pro football. The Raiders' AFL championship loss in 1968-69 came from the Jets and Chiefs, respectively, and both went on to beat the NFL champion Super Bowl upsets. Following a late 27-23 loss to the Jets and Swin Sweat Shake Stadium in the 1968 AFL title game, Davis replaced Rouch. It was John Rouch with Raiders defensive assistant John Madden. Oakland went on to win Western titles in 69, 70, and 72. The year marked not only they returned to glory for the Raiders, but who in 1971 had missed the playoffs for the first time since 1966. It marked a Rashad year for Davis. While Valley was attending the tragedy marked Summer Olympics in Munich, Davis revised the partnership agreement. The new draft establishment as the Raiders' general manager partner. I'll finish this chapter right now. Yeah, so I'm getting to chapter 3. Tomorrow, Raider Nation, Franco's Army, and Knowledge and All. From the fierce rivalry between the 1970s Oakland Raiders, Pittsburgh Steelers. 1970s rivalry between Steelers and the Raiders. So that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Be back tomorrow. Chapter 56, The Heart of the Matter. Matthew chapter 6, verse 21. But where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. That'll be it for today. So, till then, talk to you tomorrow. Chapter 56 tomorrow. So in my book, chapter 3 of Steelers Raiders rivalry in the 1970s. Talk to you tomorrow.